Malgré votre calendrier très chargé, d'honorer notre invitation à l'occasion de cette présente cérémonie de lancement de 2 projets majeurs qui comptent pour l'approfondissement du processus d'intégration en Afrique de l'Ouest. Je voudrais souligner la présence remarquée parmi nous du président de la commission de l'UEMOA, M. Cheikh Hadjibou Soumaré. Cette présence témoigne une fois de plus de la parfaite coopération de nos 2 institutions dans la mise en œuvre de notre agenda régional commun. Permettez que je salue ici l'engagement du président Soumaré dans l'impulsion de notre agenda régional. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, la cérémonie de ce jour marque incontestablement l'aboutissement d'un long processus heureux de partenariat dont les clos à Strasbourg en novembre 2008, engageant la région de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et l'Union européenne dans un accord de coopération à travers le programme indicatif régional du 10e Fonds européen de développement. Qu'il me soit permis de remercier ici l'Union européenne pour l'excellence de notre coopération et son appui constant au processus d'intégration en Afrique de l'Ouest. Cet engagement que je salue s'est à nouveau traduit par l'appui conséquent de 40 millions d'euros en soutien au processus d'intégration économique et le commerce et au programme ouest-africain d'appui à la compétitivité du secteur privé. Je voudrais associer à ces remerciements tous les autres partenaires pour leur appui technique et financier à la mise en œuvre de ces 2 projets. Je pense notamment à la GIZ, à la SFI et à l'ONUDI, qui n'ont ménagé aucun effort dans l'accompagnement de notre région, qu'ils trouvent ici l'expression renouvelée de notre reconnaissance. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, vous conviendrez avec moi que toutes ces organisations de renom constituent un gage de succès pour la mise en œuvre de ces projets dont les composantes s'inscrivent dans les priorités de développement du marché intégré de la région de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. En effet, il s'agit à travers la consolidation du marché commun de permettre l'insertion de notre région dans l'économie mondiale. Il s'agit aussi d'assurer la compétitivité de notre secteur privé à travers notamment l'amélioration du climat des affaires. Je voudrais à cet égard me féliciter de la pertinence du choix de ces composantes qui permettront non seulement de relever le défi de la mise en œuvre du tarif extérieur commun de la CEDEAO et de l'accord de partenariat économique, mais aussi de donner toute l'importance du rôle clé du secteur privé dans la promotion de l'intégration en Afrique de l'Ouest. C'est le lieu de réitérer l'engagement politique de la région dans l'impulsion de ces secteurs. Je voudrais saluer le leadership exercé à cet égard par les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, notamment dans la libre circulation des personnes et des biens et dans la réalisation des schémas de libéralisation des échanges ainsi que celle des infrastructures régionales de qualité. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, la coordination sera déterminante pour la mise en œuvre de ces importants projets. D'ailleurs, l'approche multi-acteurs qui les caractérise l'exige. La structure de gouvernance de ces projets, à travers notamment les comités de pilotage, est donc une opportunité qui nous est offerte pour garantir une meilleure coordination de nos différentes interventions. Je voudrais ainsi exhorter tous les partenaires de la mise en œuvre à veiller au fonctionnement effectif des mécanismes de coordination et de suivi prévus à cet effet. Du reste, la CEDEAO est déterminée à assumer efficacement sa part de responsabilité dans le suivi et la mise en œuvre de toutes les composantes convenues. Mesdames et messieurs, il est évident que l'objectif ultime recherché à travers ces projets, c'est bien la croissance économique et la réduction de la pauvreté. Cependant, cet objectif ne saurait être atteint sans la prise en compte des nouveaux défis sociaux. Il ne saurait être atteint également sans la consolidation de la paix, de la stabilité et de la démocratie en Afrique de l'Ouest. C'est à ce titre que je ne peux m'empêcher de saluer ici la portée des décisions du dernier sommet extraordinaire de la CEDEAO sur la lutte contre la maladie à virus Ebola, ainsi que les orientations sur les voies d'une transition réussie et consensuelle au Burkina Faso, dont les acteurs viennent de définir les modalités de cette transition. Je saisis cette occasion également pour renouveler notre gratitude à l'UEMOA pour l'appui de 1,5 million de dollars qu'il a accordé aux 3 pays les plus durement affectés par la maladie à virus Ebola. Je ne saurais terminer sans exprimer notre empressement pour le démarrage de ces importants projets pour la consolidation de notre marché commun. Je voudrais surtout réitérer à tous nos partenaires notre profonde gratitude pour leur soutien indéfectible et l'intérêt qu'ils ne cessent de manifester pour le développement de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Vive la CEDEAO, vive la coopération internationale. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
And it is my pleasure to...
President of the Ecowas Commission, Commissioners, Your Excellency, listing protocols, in terms of political stability, peace and security. Moreover, it has advanced in its regional economic integration roadmap and set ambitious milestones for the immediate future, like the establishment of a common external tariff by the 1st of January 2015, or the adoption of a single currency by 2020. Regional organizations like Ecowas and UMO are fundamental in driving this process. However, the region is still confronted with too many internal and external constraints for the smooth conduction of trade and investment activities, which in turn prevent it from growing to its full potential and offer enough employment opportunities to its mostly young population. You're all familiar with these obstacles, but let me mention some of them. West African countries have a very low trade interaction, which during the last 25 years has remained at only 11% of their total trade. Hopefully, the full implementation of the single market and the elimination of customs barriers will give a boost to interregional trade flows, but these are challenging goals. Moreover, very poor physical infrastructure, roads, ports, access to energy, also hamper enormously the ability to exchange goods and services across countries. In terms of attracting investments, both domestic and foreign, West Africa is unfortunately generally portrayed as a difficult place to do business. The overwhelming majority of ECOWAS members are clustered at the bottom 25% of the World Bank doing business ranking. Again, adequate infrastructure is a key deterrent factor, but the investment regulatory regime, which is not always transparent and predictable, is also a major obstacle. West African efforts to improve trade and investment conditions at home should also be matched with a parallel commitment to further integrate into the world trade system. Presently, the participation of West Africa in global trade is very low and based mostly on exports of commodities and raw materials. Changing this very unsatisfactory status quo requires addressing the key challenge of developing a competitive private sector, particularly given the low levels of industrialization, and ensuring that products meet compliance with international standards and technical regulations. Integration into the world trade system also means being ready to negotiate and conclude trade agreements with foreign economic partners, agreements which are mutually beneficial and set gradual paths for the opening of access to markets. However, the region is still challenged by crises of different nature. Monsieur le Président has already mentioned Ebola, which was a serious problem. It was dealt with well by Nigeria and hopefully is now being brought under control in the 3 countries most affected. But we must never become complacent. Ebola is an invisible enemy that knows no borders, and we all have to be very attentive to ensure that it is contained and dealt with this first time, but also that the risk of future source of infection are prevented to the extent possible. And obviously, I have to mention the growing scourge of insurgency, especially here in Nigeria, which is deeply affecting people's perceptions of the capacity to do business and looking to their hopes for the future. One has to be positive about the future. The challenges, as I said, have to be dealt with. West Africa is growing. It's a fast-growing population. So maybe we should try and turn some of these challenges into opportunities, which, if addressed correctly, would allow the region to leap forward in its development quest. Nigeria has abundant natural and human resources, so improved access to markets and conscious efforts to address the challenges of competitiveness, West Africa could become the next emerging region. So it is in this context that these programs come into play. The launch is very timely because they will support West Africa trade and investment in two ways. Internally, by supporting Ecowas and UMAO in completing the regional economic integration process at a time when it's critical to focus on the effective establishment of the single market and the common external tariff. And externally, by improving competitiveness of the private sector, supporting implementation of trade agreements now under negotiation with other economic regions. These programs are at the heart of what the EU is all about. We are an example of a functioning economic integration project, one that has brought peace and prosperity to millions of people and which has cemented democracy and human rights values in the whole continent. The process has not always been easy, but we've been able to learn from what has not worked, and lessons learned are very important here. The EU case shows that regional economic integration can work, but it does not mean that the EU is the model. There are lessons to be learned from our example, but which need to be adapted to other regions. So West Africa could look at how we have managed to get ourselves together and perhaps learn from that. As I said, but the fact that we are a regional economic integration project in ourselves means we are the best partners to ECOWAS and UMAO because we are similar in our structure, similar in our targets, similar in our objectives. And that we attach enormous importance to our relationship with West Africa in this context. I have to acknowledge the effective and very professional leadership of ECOWAS and UMAO. These projects would not be possible without them, and their drive in ensuring the achievement of these projects is really important. But we also have to acknowledge the very important role and expertise of the implementing agencies, in particular GIZ, the World Bank, and UNIDO. To ensure the success of these programs, they were designed with an integration approach and also complement many other projects that EU is also funding in Nigeria and in the region. This is an integrated initiative that relies on a partnership approach. Let's keep this partnership as our main guiding principles. So I wish the event every success, and we look forward to its rapid implementation. Thank you very much indeed.
À la suite de mes prédécesseurs, que cette cérémonie est importante dans la mesure où elle consacre le démarrage effectif de deux projets importants du PIR 10e fête. Ces projets sont importants pour nous pour les raisons que je veux évoquer. Pour ce qui concerne l'appui à l'intégration économique régionale et au commerce, il touche au cœur de l'intégration économique. La réalisation du marché commun constitue en effet la raison d'être de l'UEMOA qui s'est constituée en union économique et monétaire pour coordonner les politiques macroéconomiques en vue de réaliser un marché ouvert et concurrentiel. Quant à l'appui à la compétitivité du secteur privé de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, il est consacré, comme son nom l'indique, à la compétitivité, une problématique essentielle dans les relations économiques et rendue cruciale par les perspectives de l'accord de partenariat économique entre l'Union européenne et l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Les deux composantes de ce projet, l'amélioration du climat des affaires et la mise en place d'une structure de qualité, s'inscrivent parfaitement dans les priorités de notre Union. Notre organisation a conçu par ailleurs un programme d'amélioration du climat des affaires qui est dénommé le PRACA. Il est aussi bon de noter que l'UEMOA a inauguré le programme de qualité avec l'appui du 8e FED. Nos deux organisations d'intégration régionale en Afrique de l'Ouest, la CEDEAO et l'UEMOA, conduisent en effet un processus de convergence. C'est pourquoi je voudrais inviter les agences d'exécution à inscrire leur action et leur mandat dans cette démarche coordonnée dans l'orientation et le suivi des projets dont la mise en œuvre leur est confiée. C'est pourquoi, à la suite de la CEDEAO, je voudrais vous inviter à Ouagadougou, au siège de la commission de l'UEMOA. Mesdames et messieurs, je terminerai en exprimant à l'Union européenne toute ma reconnaissance pour son soutien précieux et continu au processus de construction communautaire en cours en Afrique de l'Ouest. Vive la CEDEAO, vive notre Union. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Support of the German government has been supporting the Ecowas Commission on the areas of strategic planning and capacity development, peace and security, and trade and customs. And in this context, is a great pleasure for me to participate today in the launching of the promotion of West Africa trade integration WATIP with EU funds amounting to 10 million euros and funds from the German government amounting to 1 million euros. GIZ will be supporting the implementation for the next 4 years. This complements and expands GIZ's long-standing efforts for regional economic integration here in West Africa, in other African areas as well as in support of the African Union. Diplomatic functions like the one we are having today are important events, but the real challenges of cooperation start once the ink is dried on all documents which have been signed. The real challenges start when implementation of the program starts in areas such as economic and export diversification, trade in goods and services, attraction of foreign direct investment, sustainable development, and above all, the respective changes in the member countries of Ecowas. We believe very firmly that increased regional and international trade can contribute to growth and the reduction of poverty, that regional economic cooperation will contribute to regional stability and peace. We do hope that entrepreneurs will seize market opportunities in a sustainable and inclusive way so that they benefit from coherent trade policies to be implemented in line with regional and global trade agreements and with sector policies. Simultaneously, processors should get advantage from an increased demand of high quality and safe products. This offers tremendous development and investment opportunities for the private sector along value chains, also in all countries of West Africa. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me be brief. At the end of the day, the impact of the program we will launch today should not be so much measured in the question of improved trade statistics, but rather in the answer of the question, will it help the people of West Africa to have a better life in future? Will we have a better food security? Will we have increased growth in rural areas? Will employment be created, investment promoted in industrial sectors? Does life really improve for the people? This is the point where the question, will this program be a success, will be decided. And ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, let's all work into this direction and for this goal. Then this program will be a great success. Thank you very much for your attention.
His thoughts the world. Not the Marie-Françoise, her thoughts. Madam.
Thank you. Since we are in Nigeria, women at this high table, I think this is an important day, and 3 points. The first one is indeed to commend and congratulate the 2 presidents for the effort that they are making to deepen regional integration in West Africa. And we know that a number of key milestones have been achieved, notably the adoption of the common external tariff at the level of the entire Commission, and also for their efforts to deepen the regional integration through a number of programs as the one that we are launching today. A few weeks ago, Mr. President Ouedraogo, when you invited the partners here in September, I mentioned that when we actually look at the numbers of regional trade within West Africa, looking at the Comtrade figures, the amount is 7%. But then when you take aside Nigeria, the flows from Nigeria to the region, 90% of them being oil sector, you actually find that the level of integration is higher, it's at 16%. So it's actually a rather good news, and I have this graph that we cannot present, but when you look at this graph, you do see that for some countries, actually, it's actually much deeper. When I look at Togo, it's almost 60%. When I look at Senegal, it's 46%. So that was my first point. Good news to say, of course, we have to do better, but we already have a very good story. The second point that I want to mention is the way global trade and foreign direct investment is moving rapidly, going away from the situation where countries were producing end products to disseminate them, either in their countries and other markets, toward a movement where now global trade and FDIs are interrelated, and we are looking broadly at global value chains where countries looked at their competitive advantage and produce part and form basically a regional and a global network. So it changes the dynamic, and in my view, this creates challenges, but more importantly, opportunities, particularly in the West African region, if we start applying this model and seeing what can be done in terms of the element of the comparative advantages of the various countries, not to look necessarily at individual product, but making the market work. And my third and last point, Mr. President, is that really we are pleased to see how UMOA and Ecowas are really working together, and how we partners, we are organizing ourselves to respond to this integration in the platform. In a few weeks, the World Bank team will meet both ECOWAS and UMOA here in Abuja. At the level of the partners, we are also looking at our competitive advantage, and I would like to commend the EU and thank them for the trust to ask the IFC to implement, based again on their competitive advantage, this important program looking at how to improve the investment environment to facilitate this cross-border investment and also to facilitate trade facilitations within the EU, within the region, sorry. As the EU indicated, we of course complement this program with our own programs. The World Bank has an important regional program that covers both regional infrastructure in the area of power, transport, and telecommunication, but also supporting regional integration and also looking at the development of skills to facilitate indeed the establishment of this global network that I was mentioning through the support to centers of excellence. So we are particularly delighted to comply with this subsidiary principle, to comply with this principle of comparative advantage of partners. I'm here with an important delegation of the World Bank and the IFC, and in closing, I would like to formulate the wish, Mr. President of ECOWAS, Mr. President of UMOA, all participants, that in 5-10 years, when we look back, we will see that indeed this program has truly contributed to deepening investment in the region, deepening trade, and creating opportunities for the people of the West Africa region. Thank you very much.
Another hand.
This is a great moment for which we would like to thank the Ecowas Commission and the UMOA, who have been great partners to UNIDO over 2 decades. And for us to be part of this program, again, indicates the confidence these 2 commissions have reposed on the organization UNIDO, which I represent here in Nigeria, and the Ecowas sub-region. We are very thankful to you, sirs, for your support over the years, and we believe we have not let you down in terms of the technical assistance we've been rendering to you. I also want to use this opportunity to thank the Ecowas president, who, despite the challenges in West Africa, is doing all the best to reposition the Commission to address the economic needs of the region, which is very paramount for the integration process. Mr. President, thank you, and we believe and hope that within your tenure, West Africa will move towards economic development as well as the integration for which the Commission has been set forward. We would also want to thank the European Union delegation, a great partner to West Africa and a true partner, because for political integration, we also need economic integration. And the European Union has consistently supported this sub-region on all fronts, and in particular, UNIDO, for us to provide technical assistance that will lead West Africa towards the route of prosperity. Thank you very much. Over the years, UNIDO has been providing technical assistance not only to this sub-region, but we've also supported with financing from the European Union other sub-regions. For instance, in the Central African region, we've supported a program of support for trade and regional integration. In Mozambique, we've also supported business environment support and trade facilitation. In Bangladesh, also with support from the European Union, we are helping that country in the area of quality support program and better working standards. In Thailand, in trade capacity building through strengthening the capacities of testing laboratories for food and agricultural export. These are just few of the programs in the area of trade that UNIDO is implementing all over the world, all geared towards promoting trade and access to market. Because without trade and without access to market, industrialization again remains a mirage. So that is why UNIDO, the agency that promotes inclusive and sustainable industrial development, is very keen to support its member states. What do we expect again during this program? We expect to deliver the best quality of technical assistance and services to the member states in West Africa, and we pledge to bring the best technical support and our network to ensure that this project delivers on the objectives that have been set not only by UMOA and Ecowas, but also by the supporting agency, the European Union. And on this note, I want to thank all of you for the confidence in UNIDO, and we'll continue to work with you as your partner for prosperity.
Tu vois, là on passe du trop bas.
On est au-dessus de...
Mais c'est bon comme ça. C'est la même chose.
The press conference for GIZ and UNIDO, everything, but I can as much as possible. If you just by indicate by raising your hands.
Not shoot.
Then is the implementation partners. Then as regards competitiveness.
I think that this is obviously for EU.
Any other question?
But you will handle this one.
Okay. Since this is not the first project that will be implemented, what will make this one so?
A number of the donors, such as the German government and one or two others. So our contribution, as I said, is 40 million euros, so around $60 million out of a total budget of around 45 million euros. But I said maybe the other people at the top table can come in and complete the figures that I have. And on the implementing agencies are a fundamental part of this. This project, which I think the President and I refer to as a partnership for peace and prosperity. And we think it's a nice way of putting it forward. This is a partnership, and it's about peace and it's about prosperity. Economic growth, the creation of jobs will lead to peace and stability, because we have too many young people who don't look to the future with hope and with a positive attitude. And they're too easy falling into bad hands. I'm Irish. In my country we say, the devil finds work for idle hands. We have to create jobs, we have to stimulate economic growth, and this is one way of doing it. Nigeria is a very important part of West Africa. West Africa is a very important part of Africa. There's enormous potential in this region, as I said earlier on. There are enormous natural resources. There's a dynamic population. There's a lot of young people who need assistance. So we need to try and encourage to the maximum the private sector for economic growth, to create the jobs that will give hope and a future and lead to peace and stability here. But perhaps, President, with that I'll finish.
Thank you. Maybe
To the press, the German government has a very large program of cooperation with Ecowas in different sectors. For this specific program we are launching today, there will be an additional 1 million euros spent by the German government. And what I really would like to underline is what the EU has just said. We are talking about trade, but basically we are talking about people here. We are starting a program to improve the situation of the people, especially of the poor people in all West African countries. And at the end of the day, we will see what is the outcome for them. This is where the success or the failure of this program will be determined. And I'm very optimistic that we are on the right way here. Thank you very much.
thank you.
And thank you, the press, for asking very important questions. First of all, as the President did mention, and also collaborated by the European Union, this program is about people. It's about prosperity for West Africa, and it is about peace. When we look around the world, those countries that have progressed in terms of economy, in terms of job creation, one of the things they did very well, two of the things they did very well was promoting industrialization. And the second aspect of that was trade. Because it is when you trade with people, you bring peace. You have peace with your trade partners. They create wealth, both for you and for the other trading partner. So our role here in UNIDO is to facilitate trade, but removing the technical barriers to trade. And the technical barriers to trade are so important that when your goods and services do not meet both national and international standards, you will not be able to trade. And when you're able to remove those technical barriers to trade, your industries will work more to produce those goods. And in so doing, they will require more people to be employed. So again, the second aspect is to create jobs for the teeming population in West Africa. You're also aware that even within West Africa, we have trade going on, but most of this trade is not documented, or the trade is not leading to progress. So again, this project is going to improve the quality of products. It's going to put the laws in place so that countries have uniform laws. It's also going to put the regional infrastructure and harmonize the legal system so that once your products are produced in Nigeria, they can move easily to Benin Republic, they can move to Ghana, they can move to Sierra Leone. We are also helping to prioritize and harmonize standards because standards are very important. I used to live in Europe. Once you have one product from a European country, it's accepted across the whole of Europe and also across the world. So that's the kind of thing the European Union, with the support of the European Union, we're going to assure West Africa to ensure that products produced within the Ecowas sub-region enter all the countries and also in the external market. We're also going to support a network of accredited and competitive conformity assessment services. Conformity, it's very important, conformity to standards, and we are going to help to create that. And of course, the culture of quality. Culture of quality, you can only assure it when the private sector imbibes that culture. And through this program, we are going to work with the private sector to ensure that whatever they do, both from processes, products, and people, meet quality. Thank you very much.
We are taking one is really how to apply what we call the subsidiarity principles. To make this regional reform work, we need to work with member states, and also we need to work at the regional level. So having this balance is very important, and it's a key element that is being taken into account. And I will say a little bit more when I respond to the other question on what we are doing on regional integration and what we are doing on competitiveness. The second element is that I think really the collaboration with partners. I think it's a key element. You have noted that in that particular program, we are actually not providing resources, although we are doing quite a lot on regional integration. But in that particular case, we are implementing a program on behalf of the EU, because for what they wanted to do, they have determined in the same vein as they use UNIDO for some aspect that the World Bank was probably the best institution at this point to respond to that. And we are coordinating really fully. We have, in the case of Nigeria, a country assistance framework where we are meeting and ensuring that we are not duplicating, that we are not repeating the same thing. So that is the first element. There was a question on, the amount. So the EU head of delegation indicated how much resources they have put for the program as a whole. We, the World Bank, are now entrusted with the responsibility of using and implementing part of these resources. For the competitiveness is 3.5 million euros, and for the integration, the facilitation is 11 million euros. So it's 14.5 million euros altogether. Now, you have also asked, what is it going to be done under the program, I think, Madam. So in terms of the first component, it's essentially about how to facilitate cross-border investment. And we have noted that the investment regimes vary from country to country. Each country provides some incentives, but are they harmonized so that it can facilitate, you probably heard me earlier to say that now we are talking of global value chains. It's not just looking, for example, at Nigeria. Nigeria invests and can look at the value chain within West Africa, including Senegal. So that means that that Mr. Dangote is investing in cement plants in Togo, in other countries. How the investment regime in these countries facilitated investment. So that is one element that we are going to look at. Under the same component, we are also looking at what we call transfer pricing to ensure that through that system, companies are not, if you want, playing to maybe a charge, in one country so that they can reduce their their taxable income. And this is what we call, transfer pricing, avoiding that and having it properly regulated. The second element, which is the regional integration, and I think that I'm very happy because we are actually strengthening what the two commissions, the region is doing. For example, you've heard that under the Lagos-Abidjan corridor, they are now trying to establish a highway to facilitate smooth movement of people and goods. We are now coming under these components to look at what happens, at various borders, at the ports, what are the procedures, to clear customs, to facilitate movement of goods? At the physical border, what is happening? So there will be, and this is why I was saying the lesson learned is that for this to work, we need to work with member states, and we also need to work with the region to ensure that there is coherence. My technical team is there if you want to have more answers on which country are we starting with, because now the program is really now taking off, and we are very delighted, and they will be able to give you more details in terms of the sequencing of interventions at country and regional level. Thank you.
A year. So in order to meet the needs of our people, it is generally considered that we need a 2-digit growth rate in order to address properly the development need of our countries. So how now to promote this growth? There comes the importance of trade and investment in our region and the key role of the private sector. In order to promote investment, you have first of all to create a regional market. That means removing barriers to trade, allowing citizens to move freely, but also you have to create an conducive environment for investment in order to encourage the private sector. And this is what these 2 projects will help us to achieve. I just want to say a few words on the lesson learned, and I would want to support what Madame Marinelli has just said, to say the key word is coordination. We have to coordinate very closely our actions between our 2 organizations, Ecowas and UEMOA, but also with our partners. So this, I think, has been taken into account in the implementation process of this project. The second element I want to stress is in order to achieve good result in this project, you need a lot of capacity buildings, because in sometimes, if you are not careful in building capacity in member states, you will not be able not only to follow up the implementation of the project, but also to have the key players that will make sure that this comes into reality. So we have also this aspect of capacity building, which is very important for our success. So let me conclude by stressing again the role of the private sector. This has been recognized by Ecowas, and this is the reason why in the extension of the Commission from 9 members to 15 members, the head of state and government have decided to create a specific department in charge of private sector. And the Commissioner Traoré is here, and with your permission, I would like to give him an opportunity to say a few words on the role of private sector in our integration process in West Africa. But of course, if there is something my colleague Soumare wants to supplement.
Créer des emplois par l'investissement à travers la promotion du secteur privé.
We work within Ecowas not only to improve the trade, intra-regional trade amongst Ecowas countries, but also to create jobs through investment.
Si nous voulons la résilience de nos populations et si nous voulons aussi améliorer le vécu de nos jeunes, nous devons travailler à faire la promotion du secteur privé.
If we want to improve the resilience of ECOWAS member countries, and if we want to improve youth welfare, we have to promote the private sector.
C'est pourquoi je voudrais remercier nos partenaires, en l'occurrence l'Union européenne, qui soutient ces 2 programmes, ainsi que l'Allemagne, qui nous soutient aussi, la Banque mondiale, mais également l'ONU qui travaille aussi bien avec la Commission de l'UEMOA qu'avec la Commission Ecowas.
That is why I would like to thank our partners for their support. I'd like to thank in particular the European Union as well as our other partners. I want to thank specifically Germany. I want to thank the World Bank. I want to thank UNIDO also for their support to these 2 key programs.
En ce qui concerne
intra-regional trade, we have been working with ECOWAS Commission and we have just concluded the Common External Tariff.
Mais comme je viens de le dire, nous n'avons pas pour seul objectif d'améliorer le courant des affaires entre nos pays. Nous avons aussi l'intention de permettre au secteur privé de pouvoir travailler dans les meilleures conditions.
As I have said before, our objective is not only to improve intra-regional trade, but also to promote the private sector in our communities, in our region.
Mais pour cela, nous avons besoin également d'avoir des infrastructures solides qui puissent soutenir notre croissance.
In order to achieve that, we need solid infrastructure to support our growth.
C'est pourquoi nous, en ce qui concerne l'UEMOA, pour le corridor Burkina Faso, Abidjan et Abidjan-Lagos, nous avons tenu à soutenir ce projet très rapidement pour que quand on produit à Burkina, que l'on puisse avoir aussi l'ouverture du marché nigérian également pour ce qui concerne donc le courant des affaires.
That is why, with regards to what we're doing in UEMOA, we have provided support to the Burkina Faso Abidjan-Lagos corridor, not only to increase the trade, but so that when products are produced in Burkina Faso, they can find their way easily to Abidjan and, in fact, to Nigeria too.
Mais comme vient de le dire Monsieur le Président de la Commission de la CEDEAO, pour faire tout cela aussi, nous avons besoin également de ressources humaines de qualité.
As the President of Ecowas Commission just said, to achieve this, we need quality human capacity.
C'est pourquoi dans ce projet également, nous sommes engagés avec les partenaires.
That's why in this project also, we are working with partners.
Et je voudrais donc remercier tous nos partenaires qui nous soutiennent dans ces projets.
So I would like to thank all the promotion of the private sector. As you know, our region exports raw materials and imports finished products. So if we improve the private sector, it will be positioned to produce quality products, and this can only be done by improving the quality of our infrastructure. This will position the region to be able to access external markets and to attract more investment. And this, in the long run, would achieve our development objectives in the region. Thank you.
Thank you.
The consumer in West Africa wants to buy. The quality has to be right and the price has to be right. So these operations, these two projects, with our partners in the World Bank and with GIZ and with UNIDO, will help encourage the private sector here to do more made in Nigeria, to do more made in West Africa. Because the future is better quality products produced locally for a consumer who is local, who is fed up of cheap products being bought in from outside. Nigeria can produce good quality products. West Africa can produce good quality products. There's a large market here. A lot of people are in need. Let's try and satisfy that market. Thank you, sir.
Is the launch of these two programs going to help Nigeria in West Africa? What do you see coming out of this? What are some of the things you feel should be put in place so that it's not just another program like many others?
Yeah, I have looked at the program, and I must say kudos to those who initiated the program. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if you look at the contents, it appears the contents appear to reinforce some of the things that are not helping the West African integration and trade to progress. And if you also look at the contents, you also discover that some of the challenges that have been stifling trade, free movement and customs, union within the integration process, have also been looked at. Essentially, you find the segments of the Ecowas Trade Liberation Scheme, which has been there since 1979 and almost dormant, and people are not using it. And this has the capacity of increasing the trade in the region. And the fact that up to this moment we have intra-regional trade hanging between 10 and 12%, where we can have the capacity of moving up to 40%, is something that is really very key. Now, the second aspect is that of the common external tariff there. For a region that wants to increase in her trade, For a region that wants to diversify, you also find a very significant component of that, very important thing. And then the deadline has been fixed for, the implementation has been fixed for January 2015, which is just by the corner. And therefore, a project like this is very key to enhancing or fast-tracking its implementation. And then looking at where there are, issues, and greasing it off so that there could be progress made. Then the other aspect is that of movement of persons, where I believe that goods cannot move without persons, and therefore it is significant to also match these two and make progress. However, having looked at the plus, the positive sides, I am looking at areas we need to have some caution. I'm saying this with all humility. We have seen a lot of funds like this coming in. This project, by the way, is about 12 million euros, just about. So we have seen some of these big, gigantic, very good initiatives coming in. But at the end of the day, if you do some statistical calculation, you find out that what is going to remain in West Africa, what may end up remaining in West Africa, might be too low compared to what goes back to the countries where the money comes in. And in terms of consultancy, capacity building, and all of that, and then secretarial activities that will be so bogus that you find out that a little chunk will now be remaining for reducing poverty in West Africa. And that's where I place my caution. Let the initiators of this project make sure that this project is that targets at the private sector, and that targets at increasing trade, that targets at poverty reduction, are also really doing that. And I would want the media, at the end of the 4-year plan, 2014, 2017, and 19, that I would want a kind of review, a kind of, an analysis and evaluation that you will come up with. You say, oh, this is the media's own perspective, that this is the impact created by this fund, so that we will not just be doing all of these things business as usual. Then few people will be hanging the funds into their private pockets, and it will not dovetail into reducing poverty and creating development in the region. That's my thinking.
All right, second question. Yesterday we all heard about CBN's new announcements about Naira increasing interest rate. How do you see this? Looking at as a trader, dividing the Naira, how do you see this impacting general activities in the country, and then the interest rate also?
Yeah, I when I read that, when I heard that yesterday, I was a bit taken aback because I had laid some cautions about devaluing the Naira. Although some economists have said, look, this will help the Naira show up. But I have my concern because of inflation. With the rise in food prices, whether anybody likes it or not, that's the current situation. That's the current situation. A lot of people do not know this. And I tell you as a trader, and I tell you as an analyst, we've been gathering all of this information and we have done some analysis. The crisis in the Northeast, where a lot of food come in and where a lot of displacement have happened, has brought in people under pressure. They are moving to other places now. And because of such movement, even the movement of goods, food items coming from those ends have been cut off somehow. Now, such reductions have made prices of consumer goods, prices of food items rise. And if that is the case, therefore, if you further devalue Naira, it may trickle towards inflation. I just hope that the CBN would have a long cutlass and machete to wait for those who are also using our funds on extra activities. I would crave indulgence to permit me to use that, so that they can also regulate this movement of funds. I'm looking at 2015, an election year, where you have a lot of money bags, a lot of political office seekers, coming out now. They'll be pulling out their funds. And many of these people have stored their funds in foreign currency, waiting for you, waiting for flashing of funds and everywhere. Buying bags of rice, buying wrappers, buying, food items and everything, loading to people to vote them. With the devaluation, there is a tendency also for us to hit inflation. The third point is that when you look at the dwindling revenue, I am not sure that the best option that we have for a future, as I'm talking as an economist now, is going to devalue Naira at this point. It may be very necessary at a point, but I am not sure with all of these three trends that I have, the indicators I've just mentioned now, to devalue at this point. I think maybe the CBN was under pressure and they just had to succumb at a point. So that's my thinking.